My name is Elle. I'm a 22-year-old student educational sciences from the Netherlands, and welcome to my channel, A Life of Learning. On this channel I hope to help out fellow students by sharing both my educational knowledge and my personal experiences. So make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any advice that I have to offer. So today I thought it would be nice to do a bit more of a casual, laid-back video. I think we have all seen the singing teacher reacts to professional cook reacts to those kinds of videos, and I thought it would be nice to make my own version of this called Educational Sciences Student Reacts To, where I react to people sharing their study tips and sort of use the knowledge that I have to explain why things would work or would not work. So yeah, it's a bit of an experiment. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoy this video or think it is helpful, because then I know that people might be interested in another part of this and I could maybe make it like a little series. So yeah, I thought a good place to start is study talk. So let's go to #studytips and see what we can find there. Okay, so the first video that pops up for me is a video from Unjaded Jade, and I really like her. She's definitely one of the people that inspired me to start this channel in the first place. And I also made a video where I reviewed her book. So make sure to check that out if you would like to see that. But I'm curious what she has to say in this TikTok.
Here are 5 essential study tips that you will probably never told. Number 1, learning. Rather than just passively rereading your textbook, highlighting your notes, which is amazing and easy and fun, which is why we do it. You need to use written techniques, which use something called active recall. Active recall is hard. It is taking knowledge out of your brain instead of just rereading stuff. To do some learning, I'm going to choose something to remember. Let's do chapter 1 biology. I'm going to test myself on it. And I'm going to write down every single thing that I can remember from that chapter from memory. And I can use a few prompt words if I want from the chapter, but I'm just going to go ahead and write. Here we go. Then you just get a highlighter and you compare it to your notes or your textbook, and straight away you know what you don't know. It's such an efficient use of time. You now know what you need to work on more. I dare you to go try it for something you're trying to learn. My book, all my top study tips, is coming out.
She's talking about her book. Okay, so in this video, Jade is talking about a study technique called blurting, where you write down everything that you can remember about a certain topic and then check it against your book or your PowerPoint slides to see if you actually got everything right. And I think this could definitely be a very effective study tip for some people. It indeed, as she said, makes use of active recall, where instead of passively reading over something, you actively try to recall information from memory, which is great because then you train yourself on being able to recall it, which is exactly what you need to be able to do on a test. However, I think one thing that she sort of fails to explain is that after checking your blurted information against your learning materials, you need to do something with the information that you gained from that. So by checking it against your learning materials, you should be able to identify the gaps in your knowledge. So there are things that you didn't write down, which you should have written down. And that is the part that you need to pay attention to. Because when studying, when you want to learn new things, the important thing is to focus on the things that you do not know yet. Because that is where your room for improvement is. Whereas the things you already know, I mean, you can test yourself on them and find out, yay, I know this, but that is more a good way to validate that you know things rather than a way to learn new things. So the next video is by Annie Long.
Study tips you needed to know like yesterday.
I used to spend hours drawing detailed diagrams and making detailed notes. That feels really productive, and that's what our teachers always tell us to do, but it is extremely ineffective compared to active recall. Active recall is where instead of taking notes, you just write down questions for yourself to answer later to retrieve that information. I use the app Notion for all of my active recall notes. It's actually better to batch our work in subjects. Teachers always tell us don't finish the assignment on Monday, but it's actually kind of wrong. Studies have shown that when we're constantly switching from different subjects like English to math, it's actually harder for our brain to really get deep into the work.
Okay, so she also talks about active recall, which indeed is a very effective study technique, especially when studying for tests. And I find it very interesting how she connects that to note-taking in a question format instead of in the regular bullet point format. Because on the one hand, I think it is really smart to have questions that you can use to test yourself. Indeed, use the active recall technique to make sure that you can actually recall the information that you need to be able to recall during your test. However, I personally also really like to take informative notes. And the reason why that is because I noticed that it takes a lot of time to find back specific information somewhere in your huge textbook or in your hundreds of PowerPoint slides. So I actually believe that it is important to use both prompt questions but also make informative notes, because those informative notes will just make it a lot easier for you to find back information, so that when you are using the questions to test yourself using active recall and you realize that you are not fully sure about something, then you can very easily refer to your notes to find back that information, which is way quicker than spitting through a full book or a full set of PowerPoint slides, because it's just way more concise. And the word batching, I actually have not read any research on this, but I personally also prefer, especially for things that take a lot of brain power, to spend an extended period of time working on that one thing. I just feel that it helps me focus a lot better, and it really gives me the opportunity to really get into what I'm doing instead of working on it for like half an hour and then having to move on to the next thing. But I guess this also really depends on your personal preferences and how well you are able to focus, because just not everyone has the ability to focus for an extended period of time on one specific thing. And then I'm mainly thinking about people that have ADHD or related attention disorders. So yeah, I think for some people that could be a great tip. For other people, I don't think that it will work that well. Okay, so this one is by Journalistic, and the title picture says how to be 3 times more productive. So I'm very curious what she has to say.
Here's my biggest study tip that can save you hours when studying. Go to Speechify.com and add the extension for free. Speechify is a Chrome extension that lets you listen to any text, physical or digital. I'm not much of a reader, so this has been a lifesaver for me and has made me 3 times more productive. There's also an app version of Speechify, and it's great because you can scan textbooks and it'll read to you. You can download it for free, and the link is in my bio.
Okay, so this one is about Speechify, which is a browser extension that will read out texts for you. And I've actually been wanting to test this out for a while. I haven't gotten to it yet. But I think it's an extremely interesting tip, because in educational sciences there is this hypothesis. It's called the dual processing theory, of which one version states that you have separate processing units in your brain for processing auditory stimuli and for processing visual stimuli. So basically these are 2 completely separate channels, and if you fill up one channel, the other channel is not affected. And this relates to another theory which is called cognitive load theory, which basically states that every learning activity has a cognitive load. So it takes up space, processing space in your brain to engage in that learning activity. And if that processing space is overloaded, you cannot learn efficiently. So the reason why this is related to dual processing theory and Speechify is that the dual processing theory states that there are 2 separate processing units. And if you overload one, then the other still has space. So to learn effectively, it is important to make use of as much of the space in both of these processing units as you can. And the problem, if you are, for example, trying to read and take notes at the same time, is that both the reading and the note-taking are processed visually. So you basically put all the cognitive load only on your visual channel. Whereas if you use an app like Speechify, you free up a part of your visual channel and move that load to your auditory channel, which should create more processing space to efficiently process the stuff that you are learning. So although I have not tried it out for myself yet, based on these 2 theories, which are pretty well supported theories, it is actually something that should work really well. So I would definitely recommend trying this out if you want to. So this next one is from Josephine Holm, and it's called Scientifically Proven Study Tips.
Scientifically proven study tips. A lot of the time, reading and highlighting in a book is actually not the way to go. Studies have shown that in most cases, it doesn't really help with understanding, and it doesn't help you link knowledge and key concepts together. Instead, try this. For every page or even paragraph that you read, write down everything you remember on a piece of paper. This is active recall, and it really helps with long-term memorization. Plus, it's a really good indicator for whether or not you're actually paying attention when you're reading. And a little add-on tip, for even better memorization, read through the paragraph or the page one more time, and then fill in on the piece of paper what you didn't remember in another color. And as always, happy studying.
Okay, so this is again active recall, and I think this is very similar to the blurting technique that Jade talks about in her video. But the difference with this one is that you do it not for a full chapter, but for every page or every paragraph that you read. And I actually think that this is quite smart, because one very strongly supported principle in the educational sciences is chunking, because basically your working memory, so the memory that you use to hold everything that you are currently thinking about, has limited capacity. So if you first read a whole chapter and afterwards try to remember the important information from the chapter, there is a decently big chance that you will have forgotten a large part of the information. So especially if you are studying for a subject where detail is very important, you might be asking too much from your brain if you try to remember everything from a full chapter. Whereas by breaking it up per page or by paragraph even, you feed the information to yourself in smaller units, which increases the chance that you will be able to keep almost all the information in your working memory, so that there is less chance that you will forget to write down a lot of the things that you just read. So I think 5 is enough. So this will be the final one. It's by Alexandra Huye? I don't know how to pronounce this. And it's called Sharing My Best Study Tips. So basically the tip is to start off your day with the worst or most boring task. And again, I cannot really remember reading any research on this, but I guess this is also just highly dependent on the person. Some people like to start on the thing that they want to get done as fast as possible, just to get it over with. But I personally really like to start with something that I enjoy doing, so that sort of that first positive experience of the day makes me more motivated to also take on the rest of the day and all the work that I need to do then. So I guess this is just one of those things where it might work really well for her and maybe for you too, but it can depend from person to person and everyone just has to figure out for themselves what works well for them. So yeah, that was me reacting to some study tips TikToks. I hope you liked hearing a bit about the more scientific background behind some of these study tips, and that it maybe helped you to understand a bit better why certain study tips work well or do not work well. Please let me know in the comments if you like this video and if you would like me to make a little series or something out of this, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you lots of love and a life of learning.